out at Mount Me, and we're going to have a little bit of a look at Lantana and try to explain to you why councils illegally allowing Lantana to grow on footpaths is such a catastrophic event for our ecology and our flora and fauna. In this particular place here, you can see how the Lantana takes up residence over this watercourse. So all of this stuff to the right hand side on the boundary of this property next to us are a set of watercourses that spread this material further downstream. Now this place, everywhere where you have vacant lands or lands that are lightly used, now footpaths become one of those havens for Lantana, and it creates this. So there's the border of the fence where the gate is there, and all along this you can see it's cut like a knife, where somebody at some stage has attempted to at least keep a perimeter there. But the Lantana itself here, this is a dry time of year in winter where it's not very not growing that profusely. But you can see the levels of it to all of these watercourses. There's another one just in front of us to the left there as we turn around here. But there's nothing gets through this material. There's nothing lives underneath it. Anything that would have hidden or utilised this material would actually be, punching areas through it. And you look at that basket weave is probably the best way to sort of, describe that of material. There's nothing utilises that material in any sections of that. But as this material sits on these slopes and places like this that fall into creekways, you can see there how it's flooding down through these people's properties. It's something that with Moreton Bay Regional Council, like through Sanford and many other areas, we are going to have to take a very, very serious look at how Moreton Bay Regional Council and other councils conduct themselves. See this property up above, straight in front of us there, where you can see the beautiful grass paddock and that, and the people have horses there. Moreton Bay Regional Council have informed some residents in some areas around Deception Bay and places like that there's now a push within council to ban horses from being kept in any of these areas that actually flood into watercourses. So can you imagine even worse than the Lantana, and finding out that the council won't actually even meet their legal obligations, and your Prime Minister and your Premier of Queensland and Premier of New South Wales don't even bother to enforce the legal responsibilities, which is incredible. Biosecurity doesn't enforce them with the councils. Look at the vigour of the material there. And it's down both sides of the road, all the way along this road for hundreds of kilometres. So you look at it here as we fly over this stuff. There's no passages through this material. So where wildlife has to cross from one side of the road to another, they're forced into a narrow bottleneck where you'll have a driveway or something that they can actually get across the road, and then they dart across the road in with next to no warning for the cars, and creates a terrible consequence for the animals. Have a look down in the right there. I've panned left, but down to the right and underneath these trees as I slowly come up here, and you can see this sub-story canopy of this Lantana completely controls this whole watercourse. This is a watercourse. How can they allow this material to actually take residence in a watercourse? Mechanical operations are the only ones all the way under the whole of that structure there, as you can see it right now, and the animals up there in the paddock. All down the left-hand side of this road as we face it, all the way along there, both sides of the road. So when the rain hits this stuff and flushes the seeds out, it goes washing down the gullies and the creeks and the gutters of the roads and continues to infest further downstream. And it's one of the big things that, see how in this property here is looks like it's abandoned. You can see how this material is slowly starting to consume across that property. People buy a property for an investment or something like that and don't come back for a year or 2 years, and suddenly find that this material's taken over their property. And under the way the government's doing a lot of this stuff with land clearing laws and a lot of the laws related to what you can and can't do in defending your property, means that there's very little opportunity for you to actually protect your asset. Now this one's further down the same road, probably about 1 kilometre from that other section, on a steeper section of the thing. Now these properties up here look to have been sold in recent times, and you look at the lantana and all these weeds down into these gully courses here. So these people are fighting an incredible battle, and I take my hat off to them. It's incredible how hard they've fought to claim that land back, but they're stumped at where it is in the actual gullies and along those watercourses. Now, look, people think that councils know something about a subject, and in weeds they are the most useless bunch, I tell you. Only them and biosecurity about as equal as each other. This material, when it gets into a watercourse, it really prospers and it really thrives. Then the birds pick it up out of the watercourses because being in a watercourse, it can seed all year round. Now the government's numbers on how much the lantana propagates is 400 plants per plant, okay, per year. If it's in a watercourse or in an access to a road where it's getting water all year round, every time it gets 25 mils of water, it'll propagate again and reseed again. So if you just take a very, very steady number and say, well, let's say 6 times a year, that's then 3,600 plants for every plant. And in these films here, you'll see how much wild tobacco and cockspur and different other organisms are moving with these plants. And that's this is becoming a supercell, a group of plants that are all working together for their own benefit to climb these trees and then pull them down and then kill them off. So it is a massive problem when the councils allow illegally for these materials to grow along their footpaths and their sides of their roads, just from a maintenance point of view. If they just maintain those surfaces, even once and twice a year, there would not be the costs that there are now, that they are complaining that, oh no, we couldn't afford to do anything with these issues. But we can't afford not to do anything with these issues. At 3,600 plants per plant, look at the fall on this road here. So all those seeds get washed off that high side, down onto the road, hit the gutters, and get flushed further downstream. So people's homes, like these people to the right as we pan around here, have been fighting an endless war with a disease that wasn't even on their land. And the councils take no responsibility for it. They say, oh, it's not even noxious anymore, we're not interested in doing it, it's low risk. And low risk relates to them saying, well, we lost control of it, and therefore we can't see any point at which that we can get control, so we're not going to spend any money on it. So what does the future hold? You can buy a property that's bordered by material like this, and this should be a warning for all young couples, for families to tell their young ones, for God's sake, don't buy stuff like this. Land's being sold for half of the cost of what it would be if it wasn't infested. But when the infestation comes onto your land, your hands are tied as to what you can actually do to protect your asset. So how do you win? You're supposed to be buying a wildlife habitat according to the government, where your hands are tied to protect it. So if your land gets taken over, let's say it's 20% or it's 50% of your land gets taken over, well, what happens then? How are you going to manage to protect any part of it? You can't. You're a passenger. But you've got all the costs. There are that many people coming forward to us now saying that the councils are saying to them they have to do all this by hand. Okay? They can't do it with machinery. They can't go into those gullies and those ravines there and clean that out. Not because I can't do it. I can go into 30 degrees, which is much steeper than this, and actually even leave the leaf litter sitting on the hillside. And yet they don't acknowledge that operational success and operational thing. Look at All of this is weeds. All the way, this whole shot is weeds from all under the trees down into the gully to the left-hand side there and the watercourse. You cannot allow this material to control watercourses, and you cannot allow this material to control elevated land. Like, you look at how high up I am there and how this is flooded down across this surface. And all from the council's land, all illegal. They cannot release this material to the environment, and yet they have been doing it for decades. This material didn't just happen here in a very short time. This has been going on for years and spreading down these surfaces. And as our population's getting older, and sometimes they've lost their husband or or wife, and they simply can't get around their property. So when they try and sell their only asset, their only means of support for the rest of their lives and their aged care, it's worth nothing, because this material is flooded from the council and Crown lands across your investment. And why are they taking over your lands with this wildlife garbage? They're taking over your lands because the Crown lands are so infested. The infestations within the national parks are so complete that the animals can't survive in those areas. They need our lands to then be able to have somewhere to live at all. And then they tie our hands in being able to protect our property. So something's got to change with Anastasia Palaszczuk and the Prime Minister. They've had over 12 months of this information, and they have not bothered to even look into this particular situation. This type of thing goes on for hundreds of kilometres. And literally, that's no exaggeration, hundreds of kilometres on both sides of the roads exactly like this, all the way through to Sanford. And when it's actually people's homes and property values that are being completely lost, your child's future financial security is being lost here, and nobody wants to hear about it. So please join our Lantana Removal Queensland group on Facebook. Comment and please share the hell out of it, because this is going to become the greatest disaster in our nation's history in the next 10 years when this hits 50 million hectares and $300 billion problem. And they call it low risk. Anyway, I'm Gary. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope this makes much more sense. Nothing gets through that material. Otherwise, there'd be holes punched in it everywhere. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you on the next one. I hope you enjoy the flying. Anyway, bye-bye.